Welcome! So in this video, we're going to talk about mid-season-ish grades during the four-season break. Of course, I'm going to ask you some questions. I'd love to hear from you in the comments section. Then I'll throw a little bit of stats at your face, and we'll finish off with talking about some possible trades in terms of, centers and D and so on and so forth. But before we get started, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up. It obviously helps the algorithm. And hey, do the thing. Subscribe. Now I'm expecting my second kid any week now, which means I'll probably have to barricade myself in this room if I ever want to shoot another video. But it will happen. I will be back. No more foreplay. Let's jump in here with the mid-season grades and let's talk about first question. What's the biggest surprise for you so far this season? I think there's a few things you could throw into this category. You could say it's the goaltending. You could say it's Tavares, McMahon, maybe even Pacioretty. In my case here, I think I'm going to go with McMahon. He had 15 goals last season. He has 17 already this one. It's likely he could hit 25 if he could stay healthy. And speaking of healthy, imagine him in the playoffs, unlike last season. Goaltending, I kind of knew was going to be good. Maybe not this good. More on that later. But Tavares has had a great season as well. But I'm sticking with McMahon. Pacioretty has had his ups and his downs. He started really well and, is going through all these injuries now. I think a fourth line position could fit him best with Lorentz and, flip a coin between Doer and Holmberg. And he can score from time to time. And hurt a guy, obviously. Next, what's the biggest disappointment so far in this Leafs season? At first, you could throw the power play in there, but it's been getting better recently. You could say 5-on-5. You could say secondary scoring / depth. You can point out some particular players like Nick Robinson or Max Domi. I think I'm going to go with the umbrella answer here in the secondary scoring / depth, which includes players like Robertson and Domi, and is one of the reasons why they gotta, go out and trade for a centerman. Moving on, where do I see the Leafs compared to the rest of the league right now? Well, I'd like to break it up into 3 different categories: elite contenders, runners-up, and just contenders. Now, in the elite contenders category, I've got teams like Edmonton, Vegas, Florida, Dallas. Then in the runners-up, I'm looking at the Jets, the Capitals, the Hurricanes, the Avalanche. And then we get to the contenders, which I believe is where the Leafs are, along with teams like the Devils, maybe even Tampa. Now, any of these teams could move up or even down in these categories, depending on, what they get before the trade deadline. So we'll see what happens. Next question, who would I like to see the Leafs play in the playoffs? Well, right now it would be Tampa Bay, and that wouldn't be a bad thing, really. They seem to have their number. Vasilevsky hasn't been himself, especially against them. And of course, they lack the depth that they've had in the past. Otherwise, if they happen to finish first place in the Atlantic, at the moment anyways, they'd be facing Ottawa, which I think would be unbelievable. It would be great. It'd be a very exciting matchup. What's old is new again, especially with, Brady Tkachuk and what's going on with the Four Nations right now. I think it would draw a lot of ratings, maybe even from the US. Washington seems to have the easiest route at the moment with Detroit. I just don't see the Red Wings getting past that first round, no matter who it is, really, even though the new coaching smell hasn't worn off, and they've been on a bit of a run there, being 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. I'll have to say Ottawa. I think Ottawa would be a cool team for the Leafs to play in the first round. Next, am I surprised how good the goaltending has been? Not really. I think we all knew the potential Wall had. It was about the injuries. You could say somewhat the same thing about Stolarz, but I followed him ever since he was with Anaheim, originally with Philly. And then, of course, when Florida picked him up, I thought that was a steal. I watched him play. Big man, huge competitor. I knew he was going to play well, just not this well. And last question here is, what's my biggest concern? Is it the depth scoring or the defense? And I think I'd rather rephrase this question in, what better acquisition can they make before the trade deadline? Could they make a bigger impact with what's available on D or what's available at the center position? I think I prefer them to go out and get a better center, but if there's a really good defenseman they can go out there and grab, I think I'd lower my standards just a little bit at the center spot. So I kind of cheated on that one, but you know what I mean. Now let's get into some statistics that I'll throw at your face, starting with point percentage. They're 9th in the league. Washington is first, of course. San Jose is last. They're second in the Atlantic Division. 9th in the NHL, tied with the Avalanche and the Devils. Winnipeg, of course, is first. Goals for, the 13th, tied with Buffalo, who can't play defense. And Winnipeg, who's first. I like to see them get into the top 7. LA is first. Goal differential, they're 11th in the league with only a plus 13. This has definitely got to improve as well. Winnipeg, again, is first. Winnipeg's got a plus 68 and Leafs are a plus 13. Massive canyon between the two teams there. The power play, they're 12th in the league. That seems to be creeping up. I'd really like to see that in the top 10. Winnipeg is still first in this category at over 33%. Unbelievable. Their PK is 13th. That seems to be bouncing back a little as well. Dallas is first in this category. Penalty minutes, they rank 22nd in the league. Boston is first. Vegas is last, curiously. Face-off win percentage, they're 4th. The Islanders are first. The highest you'll find them on this list in anything. And Anaheim's 32nd. Shots for, they're 15th in the league, just under 29. Edmonton is first with over 32. And Chicago is last with just under 25. Shots against, they're 19th. Carolina is first. Anaheim is last. Blocks, they're 13th in the league. Philly is first in this category. Carolina, surprisingly, is last. I thought they'd be in the top 5. Hits, they're 11th. Florida is first. Edmonton is 32nd. Sounds like a carbon copy of last year. Giveaways, this is a bad category. You want to be down the ladder on this one. And they're 22nd, which is half decent. Utah is first, and LA is 32nd. LA could surprise some people in the playoffs if Doughty gets back into form. Takeaways, they're 23rd in the league. I thought they'd be a lot higher in this because, Nylander, Matthews, Marner are really good at it. Not to mention, Tavares battling along the boards. You figure there's takeaways there as well. Anyway, Boston is first in this category. Maybe they're not totally lost. And Tampa Bay, 32nd. Really surprised stat there. Goalie save percentage. Now, we're starting with a minimum of 18 games in order for me to fit Stolaraz into this thing, which would make him first in the league with a 929 save percentage, and Wall would be 17th with a 909. But Wall has played 30 games so far. Now, in their last 10, they were 7-3-0, and of course, they lost their last game. How would I grade them so far this season? I think I'd give them a B. You could argue me up to a B+, maybe. Their defensive play has to get better like it was earlier in the season, I feel. In that depth scoring, something's got to happen there. Speaking of which, let's talk about trades, ladies and gentlemen. Starting with the defense, because this is a shorter list/category that I have here. And I sort of broke them into 3 parts. The pipe dream, the expensive, and the reasonable. So let's start off with the pipe dream. Why not? Let's dream a little. Starting with Noah Dobson from the Islanders. Now, he's an RFA. He's got $4 million on his contract. He's from PEI, by the way. Did I say he was a right shot who could play the first power play unit? Yeah, so Leafs have got to be sniffing around on this at the very least. If he's even minorly available, I think they got to throw the kitchen sink at New York to pry this guy away, but I would do it. I think he would change the team dramatically. Then the other players, it's kind of like I'm comparing apples and oranges here, but Radko Gudas out of Anaheim. Now he's got 1 more year left at $4 million. He's a right shot. Yes, I remember he screamed in Wall's face during the Florida run the season before last. But I mean, would you even remember that without me even mentioning it? He's one of the hit leaders in the league. He's one of the scariest guys to play against. He's a playoff competitor. He hurts people on the ice. He knocks people out of games. He scares a lot of guys. Why wouldn't you want that? Now, I'm not sure he'd be worth the price Anaheim might be asking, but, again, pipe dream. Okay, so let's get into the expensive guys here, starting with Jamie Oleksiak out of Seattle. He's got 1 more year left after this one at $4.6 million. He is a left shot, but he can play right. He's a massive human being. He's like 6'7" or something, 250 pounds. He's tough as nails. He fights on the odd occasion. He'd probably make a great partner for Morgan Rielly. The other player I'm going to mention here is another apples and oranges scenario. I want to say his first name is Michael, but Kesselring from Utah. I want to say he's like 25 years old. He's very young. He's got 1 more year left on his contract at 1.4. He'll be an RFA with Arbrights, I believe. He's a right shot who can play left as well. I think he's playing their second power play unit at the moment. So this could be more an investment piece for the Leafs if they could pry him away for a reasonable price. I kind of doubt it, but if they could, I'd do it. And then we got everybody else here. And I'll start with the most mentioned Luke Shen. who I would love for them to grab back. He's getting a little bit long in the tooth there in the age. I want to say he's around 36. He's got one more year left on his contract after this one at 2.75. He's a right shot. We know he plays well with Riley. He's tough. He hits a lot. He's a perfect playoff performer. Another player I don't think I would mind would be Connor Murphy out of Chicago. He's got one more year left at this one at 4.4. Another right shot D. Big man. Another potential partner for Riley. Then after that, we start scraping the bottom of the bucket here a little bit. There's Ian Cole out of Utah. He's a UFA. He is a left shot but can play right, and he's being paid 3.1 this year. Another long in the tooth guy, a veteran, but if you don't overuse him, he's very reliable. Then we got David Savard, another long in the tooth guy. He's a bit of a shadow of his former self, but he is a right shot. He's a UFA. He's making 3.5 this season. I could squint and see it a little bit. And then last here, we've got Ristolainen out of Philly, who is a right shot. He's got 2 more years on his contract at 5.1. I know he's improved his play under Tortorella, but unless Philly eats a big portion of this contract, could end up costing too much because of that. And I just, the way he plays or did play, it just seems to be a bit of a risky decision / trade to make because of his past play and the fact that he's never played a playoff game ever. So there's that. Next, let's jump into the centers, mostly here. I hope to surprise you just a little bit. Now, the usual suspects you've heard of: Brock Nelson, Braden Shen, Donato, Kunin, Bustad, Frederick, Lawton. Let's start with Nelson. He just seems like he would be a bit too expensive. He's a UFA, obviously making $6 million. He's also a left shot. He would be great, because ideally you want a 2C bump Tavares down a line. So he'd be a great fit. You know who'd also be a better fit and would probably be even more expensive is Braden Shen. Maybe worth it though. He's a left shot, but he's got 3 more years left on his contract at $6.5 million. There'd have to be some cap shenanigans there in order to fit him. Imagine you got both Shen brothers and then went after the other Tanev. Ooh. Donato is having a career year right now with Chicago. I think he's got like 17 goals or something crazy like that. He's a left shot. He's going to be a UFA. He doesn't make much money, so it'd be easy to fit under the cap. Problem is, he's played most of his time at wing, but he can play center. And he's only played 19 playoff games in his career with 2 points. Luke Kunin is a right shot. He'll be a UFA. He's only making 2.7. He's not at the bottom of my list, but he's close to it. Better than nothing category, really. Then there's Bustad, who is more, for me, like a 4th line center guy right now. He's a right shot. He's UFA, large human being. He's coming off a $2.1 million contract. Now, if there's some sort of swap here with Kampf, because Bustad makes a little less money, like $300,000 less, maybe there's like a lateral trade there to be had. I don't know. Anyways, Trent Frederick also, who trading with a team in your division seems so hard. He is a left shot. He's a UFA. He's coming off a $2.3 million contract. He would be a solid 3C, but I don't see him being able to jump up into the 2C spot. He is very tough and annoying to play against, though. Then there's Lawton, who I feel very similar about with Philly. He's a left shot, though. He's got 1 more year left after this one at $3 million. This is one of the most common names being thrown around lately. I wouldn't be disappointed if they got him, but I just don't see this as moving the needle enough for them in the playoffs. Then we move on to all the rest. Pajot from the Islanders. He is a right shot. He's got 1 more year left after this one, but it's at $5 million. It's a little hard to squeeze under the cap. He is a face-off master. Doesn't have much size, but he's got like 86 games in playoff experience with 43 points and 24 goals. Not too shabby. You could do worse. Then there's Colton Sissons out of Nashville, who can play center, is a right shot. It's important for faceoffs, by the way. They don't have enough of them. He's got 1 more year left after this one at 2.8. Very manageable. He's having a bit of a bad year. Played with Nashville his entire career. Has played 71 playoff games, but with only 25 points, 10 of those goals. Now, if they got one of the best 4 defensemen available and then added this guy, I'd be happy about it. But again, I don't see him being able to bump up to play 2C, obviously. Then there's Ryan Strome out of Anaheim. He is a right shot. He's got 2 more years at $5 million. Doesn't excite me at all. Jake Evans out of Montreal. Again, he's in the division. Be very hard to trade for someone like that, but he is a right shot. He's going to be a UFA. Only $1.7 million. Maybe there's another, lateral move the Leafs could do here with David Kampf and Nick Robertson, because Kampf has got a couple more seasons after this, if I'm not mistaken, on his contract, and you get back Evans and a 3rd in a 6th or something, you free up some cap space and you got some picks you can play with now too. Then I've got some wingers down here, which I'm not sure they would have the assets to go out and grab. But if we're going to dream, why not? Brandon Tanev, of course, is the top of this list. He'll be UFA at the end of the season. He's making 3.5. He'd look great on a 3rd or 4th line. There's Krause out of Utah, who's having a bad season, but he's a power winger, would probably do really well in the playoffs, and he's got 2 more seasons after this at 4.3 mil. There's Schultz, who has played center occasionally, is mostly a winger, also out of Utah. He has 1 more year left after this one at 5.8 mil. And that's it. There you have it. That's my list. Let me know what you think about all these trade considerations I have here down in the comment section below. Would love to hear from you. Please, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. I do make videos from time to time. And you could definitely expect me to do a first round playoff prediction involving Toronto. Lastly, if you want to help support me, you can do that on my crowdfunding page called Buy Me a Coffee. Every little bit helps. Thank you once again. And remember to be excellent to each other.